Welcome back to Gladiator Diaries. Make sure to subscribe if you're checking us out on YouTube, or follow us on Spotify, follow us on Insta, all that good stuff that you will already know about so you don't miss an episode. And episode 6 back without a guest for this one, just us chatting through stuff, myself and Moddy. What have you been up to this week, mate? What's been going on?
Oh, as you can see, a lot of wrestling and strength because my neck is like extremely sore. I mean, I definitely need some sort of massage or something. I don't even know because everywhere from here to like my arms and my legs, everything's just aching. But in a good way, in a very positive way, in a very constructive way, in a very aggressive way. My training's been going very well. I feel like I had to go and do medicals. I've been doing quite a lot of traveling in terms of trying to get to training sessions. I just feel like I have no time, but I love it. I love just being busy. It feels like every day just goes by quick, quick, quick. Next thing you know, we get to Saturday. There's only 4 weeks left of the fight. So for me, it's just firing all cylinders, and the skill sets seem to be sharpening. It's like a pencil that's blunt, and then I'm just slowly well, actually, maybe not a pencil, maybe a knife would work a bit better for this analogy, but you know what I mean, just sharpening the knife slowly but surely, and it's going to become like a full straight whoosh. It'll go through everything like it's paper. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, mate, just I think every week everything just amps up even more. This is why I say I'll peak at the right time, because by the time we get to the fight, I'll have my full skill sets and my breathing so much better. It's crazy. Like I had it a little bit like, I guess after the operation, kind of like the turbulence in your nose get a little bit blocked. But this time around, I mean, I don't know. It's starting to come back because I can feel it. The card is going up. The resting heart rate's getting back down to 36. So we are, yeah, things are good, mate. What can I say?
This is definitely something that we'll get into in the episodes after the fight, but are you how is it going from having such a like regimented routine where, like you said, you're not having a whole lot of time to fit other stuff in, but that's part of it, and it keeps you busy and keeps you active at all times. But so to go from that to after a fight, how quickly do you usually go back into training? Because I imagine that sudden change of a lifestyle of having a fight coming up and then not having anything is like,
Yeah.
I think it would really take me some time to adapt to doing that.
I like to keep things constant, mate. I believe I learned this a lot in 2022. So during my return to the cage, I believe is where I learnt the value of enjoying the process and enjoying the journey and not trying to rush things. I couldn't get myself a fight till November, and I was already ready to go like in April, pretty much. And I couldn't get a fight, and I was getting frustrated. And you're training so hard, and you're like, "Well, there's nothing here. There's no goal. There's nothing at the end of the road." But you got to realize that skill development is a beautiful thing, because after fights, you can work on whatever the hell you want. You don't have to do something specific for a fighter. You don't have to work. You can work on your weaknesses, which is what I did in 2022. I worked on my weaknesses. There are many more things that I need to improve on, but when you're preparing for a fight, you're just trying to sharpen everything that you've already got. You can't actually. You might be able to, like maybe if you're preparing for an opponent, you will actually be able to improve on certain areas that are needed specifically for that opponent. But you know, generally you're literally just like going over the things that you're already good at, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? And then slowly adding little technical pointers that will help in that fight specifically. But in terms of your overall skill set and game, the only time you can improve that is during the off season. I like to stay in shape, man. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm a vain motherfucker. I like to take photos half naked, like most of the time, and I can't be looking good or promote myself if I haven't got that. You know what I mean? If I was a pudgy guy, like I don't think many people would be interested because the face ain't doing nothing. You know what I mean? You got to have a fit body. So realistically, it's not that hard. Like I said, 2022 was a massive learning curve for me because it showed me that you should be ready at all times, and the only way to do that is by training consistently. The game is improving so much. If you are staying stagnant, you are losing. If you are staying where you are losing. I'll tell you what's the hardest thing is when I was coming back from surgery, 2 surgeries as well. I couldn't do everything I wanted to do. I couldn't drill. I couldn't. When I got back to drilling, that was like a heaven sent. Like when I was able to do techniques and go back to train, and like even then, my timing was off. It wasn't the same as it used. This is why I say I'll be peaking right at the time when the fight is, because everything will be firing on all cylinders the way I want it to be. But everything goes off if you're not training. I can't do anything. People always asking me, "Oh, what about holidays? Or do you want to come see us? You want to do that?" I can't do none of that. I'm not even thinking about it. All I'm thinking about is the next fight. And because I'm thinking about the next fight and the next opportunity and being ready to take some, you can't take something short notice. Not to say that I would want to take anything short notice, but I'm just saying I wouldn't have got to the UFC and been that ready if it wasn't for me preparing all the time and learning to enjoy the process. So I must say, it's not very different for me. The only thing that was different was trying to recover, and with the injury, recovering, from the surgery. That was the annoying part. It was nice because it's like, oh wow, I can do whatever the hell I like, do you know what I mean? But you kind of like, great. Like, there's nothing thrilling about this, I want to do more. I want to put myself out in the spotlight. I want to make more. I want to do more. So I think there's a bit of a weird maniac obsession there, but I think that's what it needed to become a champion.
Yeah, it's been on my mind a lot lately. I will go from having really busy weeks to having really quiet weeks, and I struggle with that because then when when you have a busy week, I'm like, I don't have any free time. But then as soon as I have it, I don't know what to do with it, and I just kind of sit around and do nothing.
Exactly. You're
Like it,
literally sitting there twiddling your thumbs. You're like, oh well, I can watch a new Netflix show, but it's mad because you probably feel the same way. I'm guessing, like within your own work and stuff like this. But then you like to be entranced by what it is that you're doing. Like, a lot of people like to have a break or time off from their chosen field, but I can't do it. I'm always watching MMA. I'm always watching something that's motivating, or I'm trying to improve in some sort of way, shape, or form that is going to lead to something bettering in my career path, which I'm sure is the same for you. I don't know. For me, there's a never-ending energy supply to this game that I find it so hard to switch off. But people say it's unhealthy. I don't think it's unhealthy. I think in order to be the cream of the crop, that is how it must be done. Don't get me wrong. I like to enjoy myself. I like to do things, I like, like people like to party, people like to go out, people like to do certain things. And I didn't really get to do much of that when I was younger. So yeah, when I've had that bit of spare time, I like to do a little bit more of that. But when it comes down to crunch time, you realize you've got to be very, very strict and regimented. So it's a weird. I think it's a bit of a balance. The balance will never be tipped to the scales where I party more than I train, but it's always got to be somewhere in that sort of. I guess it's a fine line, I guess you could say.
yeah, it's an interesting thing with MMA in particular. With apart from the PFL, there is no off season, on season kind of thing, and so it's something that comes up a lot in talking about MMA is the idea of like when you fight is your moment in the spotlight, but then in terms of being out in the public eye and stuff like that, a lot of people kind of forget until you've got a fight coming up, and then they're like, "Oh, this guy's back," and it's like you get your. I don't want to say relevant because if someone's a fan of you, then they want to stay up to date with what you're doing the whole year round. But for a kind of general MMA fan base, they're like, "Oh, this guy's got a fight coming back up." Oh, I remember about them. Like it's even stranger because it's like you have like periods of the year where it's like you're
Yeah.
super busy, and then the rest of the time is kind of like you're just left to your own thing to just carry on doing what you do, like behind closed doors.
I think it's funny when you talk about relevance. I think that definitely rings true. I definitely felt it in my career. When my leg got injured, I had no relevance in the game. Do you know what I mean? When I came back and I had my first fight, even then I didn't really have much relevance in the game. When I knocked out Chuck Campbell, that's where things started to, kind of creep up a little bit, and more attention started being made. And then it was only until the Tyson Pedro fight that all attention and all eyes, the spotlight comes back to me. even in my last fight, because it was the first fight on the card, no one even, not many people even knew that I was even fighting, which is mad. If you think about like fans and stuff like that, and people who kind of watch you, people didn't even know that I fought in Vegas. All they talk about is a fight in Australia. Like I say, it wasn't my best performance against Zach Palga, but you know, at the end of the day, I think a lot of lessons were learned from that particular battle. I had a lot of things that I could take from it. So yeah, it's mad that now I get relevance again because I'm going out to fight in Brazil. But again, until people see me on the big screen, you know, not many people are going to know about it. You have to be on these main cards. You have to, in order for you to be a superstar, you have to be known by the public. People got to want to watch you fight. You got to put on those spectacular performances. You know, I've had a couple of decision wins. I'm done with that, man. I'm here to put on spectacular finishes as well as, you know, as well as like entertaining fights. I want to put on finishes. That's where you become remembered. And so, you know, at the end of the day, it's down to the fighter themselves. And do you know what? It's not even harsh to say that you're only relevant when you're winning and you're in the spotlight, because it's just true. This is how the world works. You can't look at it in like, oh my God, in like a sad, like depressing way. You got to look at it like, okay, well, that's got to push me to step up. That's got to push me to train hard. That's got to push me to want to take more risks and embrace the moment, you know? And I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that. I think it's quite satisfying being cool with that, because it makes you just want to perform even more, because you know what good things come with it.
Yeah, I've had today alone like two completely contrasting like sides to that whole idea of only being relevant when you've got a fight coming up, because of course, as he always is when there's something going on with him, I've written a lot of articles over the last few days about Dylan Dennis, who has managed to stay relevant for years without having a fight. Meanwhile, I also spoke to the former Cage Warriors middleweight champion Natias Frederick earlier, who has a fight coming up, and he hasn't fought in like 2.5 years. And my first question was like, "What have you been doing?" Because no one really knows. Like it's crazy. Like complete opposite ends of the scale of staying relevant even when you're not fighting.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with social media presence. I'm not sure about Natias's social media presence. I know he does post here and there. I do follow him on Instagram. Dylan Dennis is always putting himself out there in terms of Twitter, in terms of Instagram, in terms of, he's always putting something out there. And I learned that this is part of the social media game as well, mate. It's a game. It's a freaking minefield. You just got to try and navigate your way through it. If you're not posting stuff about yourself, you know, but there's another side to that as well. Like even after my Khalil fight loss, no one really cared what I was doing. Like, do you know what I mean? I'll try posting a lot. I'll put stuff on YouTube. No one gave a crap. This is the mad thing about the game, man. You come off a win, people want to know what's going on with you. You come off of a loss, no one really cares. It's crazy. This is the mad world that we live in, but results speak for themselves, man. And I'm no stranger to that, because I've had the highs and the lows, and I'm ready to take on even more highs. You know, I've always had this thing about, you know, wanting to be noticed by the crowd and, you know, get attention and this and that. And, you know, in this day and age, you just gotta continue to provide the results. It's a sad thing, but with anything in life, the only thing that matters is results. And you talk about the guys who are at the top, and, you know, like Michael Jordan, yeah, there's games where he's lost and there's games, but if you look at the overall, the results is that he was a, you know, multiple time, you know, winner of the NBA ring, you know, so many times, you know, winning in the Olympics and stuff like this. So it's winning, 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 winning. People overshadow the losses because he wins so much. It's the same here in the MMA game. You can overshadow your losses by a streak of wins. Charles Oliveira is another big example of that. He had a sort of an up and down sort of course, and the next thing you know, he just goes on a massive win string and goes to the top. Do you know what I mean? So there are fighters like this. You know, even Dustin Poirier. You know, now he's like a massive name, and, you know, yeah, he had a couple of losses early on, and then he just went on massive win streak piling up, and then there you go, back in. The way you can get back into the spotlight is by winning, because that's what people want to know about. It's just sad, man, isn't it? Because there are really talented athletes out there, really incredible people. Like Matthias is an incredible person, incredible character. The things that he's had to go through, becoming champion and stuff like this. These are amazing stories, So yeah, like I think it's mad. You'd want certain people to be more in the spotlight, and guys like Dylan Dennis, who hasn't fought in freaking, I don't even know how long it's been since he's fought, but he's constantly in the spotlight because he's taken a fight with a YouTuber, and because he likes to chat a load of crap online and stuff like this. And I'm sure, like I've seen, he's very talented with his jiu-jitsu and stuff like this. Obviously, he's been working with good guys to get his striking up there. But yeah, I mean, what's going to grab the most attention these days? Seems like YouTube and people who are always winning. The people who always get remembered are the ones who are able to succeed, and it's overcoming certain obstacles and stuff like this. And in a way, this is how I want to also be remembered: the guy that got knocked down but kept fighting, and the one who made it to the top, and made it to the cream of the crop when everyone thought he wasn't going to. And I think it's something that you got to use as fuel as well.
Yeah, there's a huge moment as part of that journey back to the top that you had, that I feel like it is one of the points that, I mean, you mentioned it very briefly, the return fight in Cage Warriors against Lee Chadwick. I'm sure, it was a massively important fight for you to come back after that injury and just get back in there. But I think on paper, a lot of people were like, "Oh, he's back and he's fighting Lee Chadwick. He should win that fight." However many times out of 10 that you want to say. Obviously, for you, you're in a completely different circumstance, because you're like, "Yeah, I should win this fight 10 times out of 10, but I'm coming back from a devastating injury that some people might not have ever come back from." Like that must have been a strange situation for you, where how important it is to your career, and yet most people are not giving you that kind of interest, because they're like, "Oh, well, he should come through that, and when he's fighting for the belt again, then that's when we'll pay interest."
Yeah, I didn't actually look at it in that perspective, so I appreciate you bringing that viewpoint out there. I didn't think that people thought, "Oh, you probably should win that fight anyways," and they kind of just. But I thought people blew past it just because of how sort of lackluster my performance was. Like, let's not beat around the bush here. I mean, it was good. It was good because we got the win, but it wasn't something that grasped. You get a massive knockout like I did on New Year's, then people are going to be talking about it, aren't they? You know what I mean? So, he's a very dangerous fighter. I knew it was a dangerous fight. It was on very short notice. It was a fight for him, also important for him because he could get right into the spotlight with a win over a big name. And for me, a legend of the sport, to win against, a veteran and a legend of the sport was a big thing for me also. Obviously, everyone thought, "Oh, he's kind of gone past his time, this Lee Chadwick," but he's won some big fights. Do you know what I mean? People forget that he's fought in Bellator and beat really credible guys. Just fought recently on the PFL Europe and won as well. So people, again, like I say, they look past those things. Yeah, of course, it was a very important fight for me, and just getting my foot back in the door, feeling the cage, feeling the environment of being back into a fight. It was a big moment because for me, coming back after that injury, I almost feel like, like I say, because it's been so long, people forget. Time kind of makes people erases their memories a little bit. No one really even knew, "Oh, this guy come from injury? What? Who's that? Was he in the UFC?" Do you know what I mean? There's those kind of comments that get thrown about, and in all fairness, it's down to me to put on the performances that make people remember. And luckily, I came through with the New Year's win. That win against Chadwick, though, it was very heartwarming for me to get a win like that, because it'd been just so long since I've been in the cage, and I was able to throw more. I did more of the things that I should have done, not entirely the way that I wanted to, but getting over the nerves of being back in there. And I felt more in the moment. This was the start of the second run in my career to be good, because I felt certain things that I hadn't felt before, like being in the moment and not being like almost feeling like third person in there. So it was nice. It was nice. And like I say, it probably meant a lot more to me than it did to everyone else. But I think that's what almost also gave me the fuel and the fire to produce that knockout on New Year's Eve. And I think if you watch the documentary, it's called Rise of the Combat King on YouTube. That one really shows like my development from that fight to the world title fight. So, you know, everything goes in stages. Everything, like in life, you know, you go through your highs and lows. You can go through certain periods of development in you as a being and as a and for me as an athlete. And you just got to enjoy it. Like I say, enjoy the process. That's a big thing. And I think you know, enjoying the process of being in a fight that I won, being in a fight that I finally, you know, it's been a long time since I'd won, you know. So now that's what ignited the win streak, and long may it continue.
Yeah, it's just such an interesting one because, like, I mean, like you said, it was the start of this whole second run, and that has gone on to be so successful. And yet, I wonder how many people, if you ask them, would say that it started with the Chuck Campbell win, because it felt very, like you said, it was like on to the next one straight away. And it's like, whoa, I've just come back and through this injury and prove that I can still pick up wins and stuff. And it's like,
Yeah,
we'll see what you do next time, though. You know,
yeah,
it's just a
yeah,
weird. I
yeah.
can understand why things like that happen from a fan's perspective, and obviously that is one thing that, even though the a big part of this podcast is getting your insight on things like that, as someone who covers the sport, I live this sport as well. So it's very, like, you know, to me, it's like, I don't know why people wouldn't talk about it, because I am one of the people talking about it. So it's
And
a
I
weird
appreciate
one.
that, brother. You've been a fan since day one, and I swear to God, that is another. Do you know what? You've been a loyal one.
Oh no.
The video just cut
Oh
out there for a second.
yeah, it cut out for me as well. I got you back.
Yeah, we're back in. Look at that. Technical genius strikes his magic once again. But like I say, you're the man. You've always been loyal to me and to everyone else that you interview. You know what I mean? Like you're very involved with the whole aspect of fighting. You show a lot of empathy as well with fighters and what they have to go through and their lives and this and that. And that's what makes you so good at what it is that you do. So, and you know, that's why most people want to talk to you. And if they don't want to talk to you, why the hell do they not want to talk to you? But anyway, I'm pretty sure they do. But
I
you know what I'm
I
saying?
appreciate it, man. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
So I appreciate that you give us the benefit and the doubt in a lot of situations. And you know, this is something that, you know, like I said, the world is ruthless. It's just nice in this ruthless world to have nice people like yourself. So you keep being you.
Thank you, man. I try. I try to, you know, help out here and there if I can.
Yeah.
Um, for the remainder of this episode, there is one thing that I want to get to at the end, but for, I think, the first time, that whenever we do one of these more like regular episodes, we won't be talking too much about the UFC, because I wanted to talk about two of the other promotions,
Mhm.
big ones, and that will start with the PFL, who had their first ever event in Paris last weekend. Because I think PFL Europe has been, they've got some things really correct, and there have been some stumbling blocks along the way. But I didn't get to watch the Paris event live. I don't know if you were able to catch up on some of the fights, but from the social media reaction and then going back and checking it out, it seemed like it was a huge success for them, like across the board.
Yeah, they've done an amazing job, you know, with the platform that they've created, with the stars that they are trying to create from that promotion. Um, you know, they're trying to bring it more into the mainstream, more into the spotlight. You've got Dan Hardy, a big key to their driving force. This is part of the promotional game. It's like Mayweather promotions and Golden Boy promotions. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like PFL now found their own identity. Their own thing that they're trying to do here, and it looks amazing what they're doing in Europe. You've got guys like Simeon Powell. Amazing victory that he had. Dakota as well, women's fighter. She's very good. Those are the two stars that they're sort of pushing. There's other guys. I can't remember if I believe Franz won, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So yeah, now the tournament system, so it makes things interesting and grasping. I mean, you look at the crowd in there. That arena was packed. You had some stars in there. So they're doing a good job with the platform that they are creating and branching out into the Europe side as well. It's just nice to see some individuality. They're doing their own thing and they're happy to separate themselves and do what's best for the promotion and it's almost like having something unique, dynamic, something different, and that's what is grasping people. And of course, they've got some very talented fighters. So fair play to them. They are creating something special there.
Yeah, they've obviously got this the finals coming up in Dublin at the end of the year, and the tournament format is always really interesting because it can play out how you want it to, or sometimes it can really backfire. Right, like these things are so unpredictable that you can end up having two fighters in the final that you never expected to see, and then they haven't marketed them and things like that. But it's worked out pretty well with this Dublin card where you've got Simeon and Dakota in the finals, who have been kind of the two poster people, and they just look better every single time they're in there.
Yeah.
Like the rate they're advancing. Obviously, you've got Franz is in his final in front of the Irish crowd. That'll be a big deal for them as well. Like it just seems like it's really clicked into place for them this year. I mean, Cedric Doumbé knocking his opponent out in 9 seconds for his debut and having Kylian Mbappe in the front row, like that's a home run.
Yeah, 100% to put on a performance like that again in front of all the stars, and this is what gets you. And obviously Cedric is a very established kickboxer. He done what he had to do on the MMA scene. And it's mad because a lot of these kickboxers are coming in very late into the game. I think he's 34 or something.
I think he's 31, which is crazy.
Which is, do you know what? In all fairness, he's actually quite young then in the game. He's still got at least 3-4 years to really like push it to be at the peak of his game. And obviously with the PFL and their format, it's a very exciting thing. Like I said, I was very impressed obviously with Dakota. She just keeps smashing it. She just keeps over exceeding expectations. She does better than what we, obviously we expect her to do well, but how she's doing it, she's making it look easy, and she's smashing it. I felt quite bad for Simeon having a change of opponent last minute. That's always something. It's a bit of a mind fuck, isn't it? Having someone else step in last minute, but he got into his groove later on in the fight. It was a clear win for him. He landed his shots. He looked, as his name suggests, very smooth in there. I love the way he uses his footwork and his head movement. So yeah, it's great that they can push all these stars forward. Franz is going to have an amazing reception in Ireland, obviously that being where he lives. So yeah, man, I think like I said, they're doing the right things promotionally to get those fights and to give these fighters opportunities. The tournament format, everyone knows exactly when everything is happening and how everything's going to be set. It gives a lot of incentive, obviously, for fighters to go out there and try and win, to bag the big bucks. So it's a very exciting time for them. Like I say, I just see that there are a lot of good things being done over there.
What do you make of the tournament format and having those fights laid out in front of you? Like I constantly see whenever they sign someone from another promotion, like someone crosses over from the UFC, they go on and say it's the toughest thing I've ever done, and like having to fight that frequently, and there is no place to maneuver dates and things like that. You are in a schedule for the year, and then you get your off season when it's all done. Like, do you think that format would suit you, or not? Because it
I
seems tough.
I am fully set on the UFC, mate.
Well,
For
of course.
me, I mean, obviously, if we're talking about, obviously, just theoretically speaking, would that sort of format suit me? And I love to fight, obviously, but let's not get it twisted. UFC is my home. I've gone in there for the second time now. This is where I belong. This is where people see the best fighters in the world to be. So I'm fully set and set in stone and ready to make my mark in the UFC. Now, if we're talking about the actual format itself, I mean, fighting frequently is always a good thing, I think, because you're always in your. But in terms, I guess your off season will be more, like I say, towards Christmas time and towards the beginning of the year, where you can, like I say, where I was saying about improving your skill sets. You need to have some time to improve your skill sets. Otherwise, you're just preparing for fights all the time. So I think it's good that how they kind of get everything done. But it's very similar to, but you just know you have a certain time frame when you're going to be fighting, as opposed to, I can fight anytime. Now it's like, oh no, now I know there's a time frame. We're not going to be really a chance of a pull out and you jump in. It's going to be more, oh yeah, like this is a set day and how everything's run. I guess it gives you a bit more organization, I guess you could say, a bit more organization in terms of exactly when you should be fighting and what's going on. Whereas contracts with certain fights in the UFC, like it could be at any time, and you just got to they'll offer you, but for the most part they'll offer you with enough time. They'll give you at least 10 weeks in advance before you have a fight and stuff like this. So I like the system that I'm in, because I can train. I can train and improve when I know I've just finished a fight. Providing I don't have any injuries, I can just go straight back into training, go back into my normal routine, enjoy the process, enjoy improving, and then when a fight comes around, okay, I've got 10 weeks, boom. Now I can be focused again on my next opponent, work on the little tweaks and stuff like that. So both are cool. Like both are almost similar, but not similar. It's like one, you don't really know exactly when you're going to be fighting, but you're still able to have the improvement aspect. And the other side is just a bit more structured to where you just know whether you're fighting or not. So like I said, I just enjoy where I'm at right now. I enjoy the fact that I can, I've got a fight booked, and then I know once I finish that, I can, and it gives another opportunity for last minute fights as well. Like if you are in shape and you're ready to go and it's a good matchup, it gives you that last minute opportunity, which I don't think the PFL will be able to offer. But on the flip side, structure is always great. So yeah.
I think that I've spoken about this ever since the PFL first became a thing. I know that they tend to they pick the matchups first time around, and then it becomes a tournament.
Yeah.
I feel like they miss such a trick in not doing some kind of big elaborate ceremony where they just draw names out of a hat at the start of the season, and that's how it goes. I don't get me wrong, I know why they do things like that. Like they opened up the last season by this season by having the biggest new signings face the champions from last year, and so it gets people interested right from the start. I get that you don't necessarily want to miss out on some of those matchups, but I feel like that would be so much fun. Like do it proper, proper classic, old MMA days of just no one knows what's going to happen. We're about to find out.
I think that would definitely add that surprise element in there and add a bit of fun to it. Like you said, I don't know, throw your idea out there. Do you know what I mean? Throw it out into the Twitter sphere and see if we can bring that one out for the PFL fighters. You know what I mean? But I think that is pretty cool. I think obviously they're probably going to be very set in their ways and how they're going to sort of go about their system. And obviously, since it's working, they're like, well, why do we need to change anything? But yeah, I guess you're right. It would be something that would be quite entertaining and interesting. On top of the whole Colosseum Gladiator type style, where you have to go in there and win your fights. I think yeah, it'll add another little element to it, wouldn't it?
Yeah. The other promotion to talk about is I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much longer they're going to be around for us to talk about them, but Bellator have got a big event this weekend. Bellator 300, which for a long time it was kind of pretty heavily rumored that it was going to be the last event with their parent company looking to sell the promotion, but it hasn't happened. We've got Bellator 300, we've got Bellator 301, and they've already said about Bellator 302. So I don't know how much longer it's going to go on, but it still does seem like it's coming to an end fairly soon. I wanted to get your take on that. And also, one of the things that I've been covering a lot this week in the lead up to it is the idea of Bellator probably having the strongest roster of talent they've ever had. There's multiple guys in that promotion that people will say are the best fighters in their weight class. Like I wanted to know how much stock you put into that, and because the UFC for the longest time has been, there is no debate. If you're the best fighter in the world, you're in the UFC to prove it. But Bellator have some really good guys right now, and it's a bit strange with who knows what's going to happen to some of them if Bellator does end up being sold.
I think that is a bit of a weird one, isn't it? Like, no one knows what's going to happen with the whole Bellator system, it being sold to who, what's going to happen, who's going to buy it, what's going to come about. I think Bellator will probably rebrand themselves. I reckon Bellator will still be around, even if they're sold to another company or other owners. They would still just try and kind of maybe just put like a revamp or re-image of the promotion and probably do certain things a different way. But I think it'll still be that that type of promotion. And of course, they've got absolutely amazing fighters. They've got guys who are really, really good. But we must admit that when you think of the best fighters in the world, I'm talking as a casual fan and then as a hardcore fan, most people will look at the UFC and think that's where the best fighters in the world are. And it's just how it is. It's the branding. It's how big they've become, how they started they were the first ones to break through and do that type of system. And that's why they're so prominent. And, you've got Dana White, managing everything and being like the top dog in the business. You know what I mean? I don't think Scott Coker will get to the same level as Dana White, even though, like I said, there's many talented fighters in Bellator. There's some very good fighters. It's got I think the talent pool right now is probably at the peak of all time in Bellator. They put together some really, really good fights, and they are really, really good fighters. But if you look at it from the perspective of in the public, and the way that the promotions have been brought about and put into the spotlight, UFC is still the one that gets the most views. UFC is still the one that gets the most media attention. Even though, like I said, the fighters are absolutely superb in Bellator. However, there's just nothing can be said. UFC is number one, and I think it'll be like that for the rest of the time in MMA as a whole. But that's why Dana White's in the position where he is, because he just knows how to run things. They were the first promotion to do stuff on Fight Island. They're the ones who are breaking through, innovating. That is why they'll always be on top. But like I said, I do understand and see that the talent pool is incredible in Bellator, and fair play to them.
Yeah, I think that I always find myself conflicted talking about other promotions, in the sense that from a fighter's perspective, it's brilliant, obviously, for them to have as many options as possible. If there's 3 or 4 promotions that can all pay around the same level and stuff, so you can choose where you want to go and use it to get the best deal, then that's brilliant. Obviously, you want to put the fighters first and make sure that they get paid and what they believe they're worth and stuff like that. At the same time, I some of these guys in Bellator, I'm like, I just want to see them fight in the UFC though, because I want to see how good. Some of these guys, this weekend you've got Usman Nurmagomedov, of course, the cousin of Habib, undefeated lightweight champion. I'm like, yeah, he looks really, really good, but do I want to watch him fight Charles Oliveira and Beneil Dariush and all these guys? Yeah, I'm happy that he's doing his thing in Bellator, but I would pay good money to see him face. I mean, he's obviously never going to face Islam, but like Charles and those other guys, I'd be so into that. And so it's a difficult thing, I think, as a fan, because you want what's best for the fighters. But I'm also like, if everyone was under one roof, so we could really find out who the best guy in the world is, that's kind of what I want to see. You know, that is why most people get into the sport.
I get your perspective completely, because there are probably certain fights that you'd want to get made. It's like boxing; certain fights they just never get made ever, just because of promotional stuff and not negotiations falling through and whatnot. But I mean, look, I feel like you can still see who the best fighters in the world are, but then I guess you just separate them. You know what I mean? You just put them in their own different categories, But like I say, for the most part, most of the best fighters are in the UFC, and then you got like you got a lot of really top guys that I don't know. It's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? Like I say, I don't really know exactly where my stance is on all of that. I mean, wouldn't it be great to have like certain super fights being made? But I guess there's a reason why there's the UFC, Bellator, PFL, and they have their own different goals and their own different focus points and stuff like this. It would be amazing to see those particular fights, but then it would just mean that negotiations would have to be made for someone to go to another promotion. You know what I mean? For the most part, most people's goal is to, if it's your goal to go into the UFC, I mean, it's a very hard route to, it's the hardest to get signed to that promotion, the hardest route of entry. Now, I believe a Contender Series is becoming a bit different, not necessarily easier, but there's a lot more opportunity for fighters to get signed by the UFC, whereas previously it wasn't. Like, I was one of the very few fighters to just get signed outright without any sort of Contender Series or anything like that. Twice actually, but second time obviously is last minute step up, and obviously I'd already been with the promotion. Yeah, the entry requirements have usually been a lot harder for the UFC, whereas Bellator and PFL usually pick guys up and then they sort of build themselves up in the promotion after So now the gateway to entry is now just changing as the times move forward. But yeah, man. I mean, look, if you're the champion of the UFC, though, people are going to see you as the best in the world, no matter which way you put it, But I think as a purist and as a fighter who's in the game, being a champion of Bellator, obviously holds a hell of a lot of weight as well. Because you're a freaking champion of the world and you're fighting high level guys. So to win any one of these titles is a massive deal. But if you look at the hierarchy, the UFC one will just hold the most weight just because of the history. And it's no disrespect to any of the other fighters in any of the other promotions. It's just history, how it is played out.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that that's going to change anytime soon either. That seems to, that's quite set in stone, I think. Because, like you said, the history, you can't rewrite the history. You can change things right now, but the history isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
The final thing to talk about, I mentioned to you after our last episode where we had the great Will Curry on. I was thinking how I would love for when we get Will back on, to just send him off on tangents, because that is where he gets fired up and will, the clip that we put out about the medieval music and stuff like that's we need more of that. So I was thinking my plan is there's a website that I've used many times, and it just creates like a spinning wheel, like a random wheel, where you click it and it just comes up with a random answer that you've put in. I'm thinking we fill a wheel up with topics maybe not to do with fight. Some of them may be somewhat
Perfect.
relevant, and we'll do that. We'll do a spin at the end of every episode and go off on a tangent. Like I said, sometimes we'll put a few fighting ones on there, like favorite fighter, favorite fight of all time, some stuff like that.
And
Fight that you would most want to see, but a
yeah,
lot of it will be just like random tangents that we can go off on.
I definitely feel like I want to bring certain guests on, certain clients of mine through the personal training world, and certain friends of friends who will give an insight into other things. Things that are related to fighting, but the things that aren't related to fighting. People that are very successful in their own fields, who are also very good friends of mine, that I would like to actually bring on, and that will bring us kind of really out onto the tangent away from fighting. We can find out more about them and what their life involves and stuff like this, but the connection is created through me knowing them and most of the time through training them and then becoming friends and creating those connections that way. And that would be another way for us to sort of branch out a little bit more and get really outside, like I say, of the realm of fighting, even though we are in the fighting world, and do you know what I mean? We have landed our spaceship firmly on this world, but of course there are other things that are important and interesting and intriguing that people will want to grasp their ears onto. I'm sure it'll create some very hilarious conversations, and of course, if we can bring Will down for the tangent tales, we'll call it. the tangent tales with me and Will, I'm sure it'll be very interesting, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'll be fun. It'll be fun to get people on who, like you said, can have a completely different life experience. But I'm sure that in their own pursuits, they will have a lot of similarities to yourself in terms of sacrifices and
100%.
mindset, things like that. So it'll be
100%.
interesting. It'll be
100%.
good. All right, well, that'll do it, mate. So I'll catch you next week. I don't know what the plans are for next week.
Right.
Maybe we should do.
I've got an idea. I've got to see if he's available. It might have to be later in the evening. I'll figure it out. It might be earlier on in the afternoon, but I'll go around his house. He's a very, again, close friend of mine. He's going to be in my corner in Brazil. He's trained with my dad for years. I've known him since I was about 11, maybe, I don't know, but we were young when we first met, and I reckon it could have a lot of interesting questions that crop up from it. I'll try and think of some stuff as well, but his name's Paulie, Paul Stain, and he's actually fought Ed Arthur at amateur, and he beat him by submission. So this is what's crazy is that Ed Arthur's gone on to fight Peter Yan. He was Bama champion, and my boy Paulie submitted him in competition, and he was a close sparring partner of Corey Tate for a while as well, along with my dad. So I think it would be a really interesting guest actually to have on, just because he's a very successful businessman in the foreign exchange world, foreign exchange broker. He's like a top dog. Obviously, he's been very close with my dad and myself for years. He'd given insight to stuff that he thinks about me and my world and how I've come up, and even just himself in his own martial arts experience, and what stopped him from fighting, what got him into it in the first place. These are very interesting things, and like I said, he's going to corner me in Brazil as well. So people, I think, will want to know what's his connection going on here and why am I bringing him in the corner? Do you know what I mean? So there's a lot of things there, but I think that would be a great one to have next, and I'm going to literally message him after this, and I'll see if we can get him on next week. I'll let you know by the end of the weekend.
Sounds good. Little preview of what to expect. No, it sounds fun, man. Yeah, that'd be cool. I didn't even know about that. It didn't cross my mind to ask you who the other person would be, because Will said that he can't go.
Yeah.
So we can dive into that.
Danny Batten's another good one as well.
Oh yeah, well yeah. We'll get.
You
Danny
already
on
know
for sure.
Danny's going to be a funny one, but Paulie first, I think. So
Yeah.
I'm going to get that one squared away. We'll get Paulie on there. And I've got a couple of other names floating about. We'll probably be able to get 2 in before I fight. At least 2.
Cool.
Yeah. So we'll figure it out. But nice one, brother. You're the man. Have
All
a
right.
lovely weekend, and I'll catch you soon, mate.
You too, man. Catch you next week.
Nice one, brother.